Welcome, guys, to Land Speculation on YouTube on another very cold, actually, the coldest night yet to date this year in downtown DC. It is, I don't know, 7 or 8 degrees colder tonight than it was last night. Probably a little windier, so we'll deal. But anyway, thanks for joining the stream, and drop a like or a subscribe out of the gate tonight. I appreciate that. Those likes help us out with YouTube. The subscribes help you guys know when we're on. Check our description for links to our Discord and our Duck Font. So I want to do a few things tonight. I want to get right into some of the content here. I know people have been watching our streams after the fact, have been, overwhelmed by the prospect of watching 3+ hours of content to learn the key points of what we are going to talk about. So I want to get to those right here out of the gate. And then I want to go on a little journey tonight to explore some parts of DC we kind of haven't gone into detail on before, specifically the other half of some of the DC tunnel network done by the U.S. Capitol, which is quite interesting and ties in with January 6th and some other things like that. So we'll show you some of that tonight. So I've been closely monitoring a lot of the comments and feedback we've been getting on some of the footage from the FBI last week, as well as some of the reaction footage we've posted the last few days. And, believe it or not, there's still a lot of interest in this topic, and there are kind of two courts right now of folks who, on the one hand, are basically tired of the topic, and other folks who are, well, we've gotten some feedback that people want us to delve deeper into some of the other theories of what might have happened at the FBI. So let me talk through whatever you guys have in mind here tonight. But I will say people have been posting a lot of different thoughts and ideas about that whole FBI the whole FBI saga last week, when for 8 hours explosions rocked the top of the FBI headquarters. And, there was a rather straightforward explanation that got unearthed after that about it being a steam valve that was malfunctioning and causing these loud booms to pop every 20 seconds, followed by whooshes of air out the top of the building. Last night on the stream, we went and we tracked basically the journey that those underground steam tunnels take from their source, which is basically a central plant located in the L'Enfant Plaza area of DC. They travel the steam travels many blocks from boilers located at that central plant to get to the FBI headquarters, which is basically about a half a block ahead of us right now. So that's interesting. I think that underground network is quite interesting. A lot of people don't realize that all these big federal buildings, are basically interconnected in the city of Washington here. So we talked a little bit about that last night. Now, I just wanted to acknowledge that, we've had lots of posts from people who suspect that maybe the explanation for what happened at the FBI was not that simple. And there are lots and lots of theories about what that potentially could have been. And as we walk tonight, I will get into a few of those and, at least kind of talk through what maybe people are thinking, and, acknowledge that I don't know. I don't know on some of this stuff, and I'm not gonna surmise that it was something if I don't have definitive proof or evidence that it was something. But I hear you guys. People who are curious to get to the truth. If people think it is a sort of different truth than the explanation that was offered, I hear you, and we're gonna see what we can explore. Anyway, once again, welcome to Land Speculation on YouTube. I appreciate the likes and the subscribes on the video. If anybody's joining us out of the gate and has not dropped a like on the video, I do appreciate that. We've got 3 times as many people watching right now as we have likes out of the gate here, so that's always a little bit concerning. But anyway, I do appreciate those likes. Make sure to get subscribed to the channel if you're not. Check our description for links to our Discord and our Duck Fund. The Discord, of course, is our 24/7 chat platform. Certainly free and easy for anyone to join who wants to. Certainly welcome people to that platform. And then, of course, the Duck Fund is our PayPal link if people want to help support the stream by giving us donations. I always appreciate that. So again, there is the corner of the FBI headquarters. This is basically the opposite corner. Let me see if I can clean the lens just a little bit here for you guys. It's a dark night in DC. I don't know if the moon is obscured maybe by some clouds or something. Anyway, there's the FBI headquarters. It's very dark actually in the FBI headquarters tonight. But that's where those things went down last week. So, Heathen, I don't know what you think, Land. Vinyl says, it was a steam relief valve. It was weird, yes, but enough's enough. Well, thus speaks to the contrast that I have been alluding to in terms of some of the responses we've got. You know, again, we've heard people that are, you know, basically sick of hearing about it, who, you know, basically kind of accept the idea that this was a steam valve, and then we got other people that are like, no, dig deeper, find the secret truth about this. So, you know, I will acknowledge there are folks out there that want us to dig deeper, but that is not, by the way, going to be the focus of tonight's stream. We're going to focus mainly at tonight's stream on checking out the other side of the DC tunnel network under the U.S. Capitol, which has a lot of its own interest points. So we'll do that, but you know, we got a little walk to take in order to get there. So as we walk over there, I'll get into some of your comments here momentarily. But I will say the tenor of things that people have been, you know, writing me about in the last few days. And by the way, if you want to write me individually, landspeculation@gmail.com is the email address. You know, there are people, of course, trying to sort of understand how this steam relief valve thing could have transpired for 8 hours without the FBI figuring out how to solve it sooner, and people who have kind of reiterated the point that I made, which was, you know, that's pretty darn, you know, dickish of the folks there not to issue some kind of public announcement to assure neighbors that things are safe. You know, 8 hours of explosions in the heart of DC is kind of a weird thing to go on. So that point, I think, is a pretty salient one. Now, we also have people who have been hypothesizing all manner of other explanations for what may have been going on. There are people who think it was explosions, that think the FBI was destroying evidence. People think the FBI was destroying, like, emergency food supply stuff. People who think all right, we are back live. Sorry about that, guys. Had a brief interruption on the stream. Sometimes there are programs that try to take over your device, and those are annoying. Anyway, people, you know, I think are hypothesizing things like the FBI was blowing things up on the roof, that they were executing people. You've heard somebody hypothesize they were executing aliens on the roof of the FBI. And then we heard people saying basically, no, they think that that this was the FBI doing like some kind of public test, that they wanted to see how people would react. But it wasn't like the real deal. It was sort of a test of that sort. So anyway, were the sex bots molesting my device? No, it actually wasn't that. It was a different program, but we'll get into that some other time. Let's see. FBI Special Agent HVAC, says Cheat Luther. Okay, guys. Well, once again, if you are joining us tonight, welcome. Gary saying freedom. Okay, Gary, I'm for freedom. Appreciate that. I guarantee you will not find the secret truth, ye who believe we landed on the moon. You know, everybody's got their thing. Everybody's got their thing they think is not on the up and up. One of the streams we've talked about doing, and actually I prepared materials on a long time ago and didn't make it all the way through those materials, and may choose to at some point do a full deep dive once again on, is going through a variety of corruption theories that people have come up with over time, and try to kind of rank them from most plausible to least plausible, or least plausible to most plausible. You know, the moon landing, I guess, would be on that list. That's something that I guess there are folks out there that think that was not on the up and up. So anyway, we'll have to, I guess, throw these FBI explosions into the mix there. Most certainly. Let's see. D. Green, you may be able to get a hold of the local fire department about building schematics or records offices, maybe the National Archives. Well, we've spent a lot of time in the last 3 or 4 nights going through some of the details that we know about kind of how that building works, about how the general certainly the steam network across Washington works. We've got a pretty good understanding of that. We also know how that interfaces with the sewer network, the underground metro, DC's aqueducts, as well as a variety of other underground utilities that all comprise a pretty complicated and integrated network of underground connections between facilities, which is quite interesting. And frankly, I think it's less a question really of how the FBI headquarters works, and really has more to do with what we talked about last night on the stream, which was how does the FBI headquarters connect into that larger network of connections that feed back to that central plant. So one of the interesting things about that is that the all those connections we showed you guys last night walking around are completely disconnected. Like, they're physically completely disconnected from the connections that we're going to show you tonight, which are basically the connections at the underground connections and tunnels closer to the U.S. Capitol complex. So there's a little bit less clear of an understanding about whether or not those two systems actually do ever even link up. But they are all controlled by basically completely different entities. And those entities don't really like each other, and there's a lot of pride involved between them. And so I don't know the answer for sure about whether the president could get between the White House and the Capitol building without being above ground if they needed to. So that's one of the things I guess we'll talk a little bit about tonight. Jay Luther, wondering if tonight's going to be about sewers. I was not planning to dig into the sewer system tonight. I don't know if my nose can handle that. But if you guys would like, we can do some sewers. The two entities barely ever link up, but when they do, boy howdy. Yeah, well, it's really it's the executive branch versus the legislative branch. The president and Congress have to work together to pass legislation. I mean, except for when the president decides to pass executive orders. But bureaucratically, they do not get along at all. The executive agencies do not get along with the congressional ones. Anything happening tonight? Lulu's asking. Well, we're going to find out, Lulu. We just showed you guys a brief glimpse back at the FBI tonight. We're headed in the direction of the Capitol tonight, so we'll show you more or less what's going on over there. And then as we go on tonight, we'll take you guys more or less anywhere you want to go. So if you have particular requests about what you guys would like us to explore, either on the ground in Washington or in deeper dive content that we'll get into as soon as we have the equipment to be able to get back to some of those deep dives in a few days. But Anyway, Supreme Court, is there anything happening over there? Jesse, we're going to go to the Supreme Court tonight, so give us just a few minutes to get over that direction, and we'll show you. I would imagine it's probably pretty quiet tonight. You know, we're a month out, actually less than a month out from the midterm elections, but pretty quiet. I think it's going to be tonight, but we'll see. There's always little surprises in D.C. You know, we talked about it late at night, how there's always, even when there are no people around, there always seem to be police flashing lights in just kind of incidental places. So we'll see what's going on. Michelle, bet they all correct. Who's correct, Michelle? Okay, guys. No time for the sewer tour, says too many rats in the sewer. Well, I don't know, guys. If you didn't watch the end of last night's stream, last night we almost got attacked. If you missed last night's stream, you have to watch very, very, very slowly. You have to slow down your video to maybe 25% speed in order to catch a glimpse of it. But there was a moment toward the end of last night's stream when a mysterious creature darted out from between some trees and cut behind us by a few feet and then ducked back into some bushes. And it was a creature unlike anything I've ever seen in Washington, D.C. before. I'm wondering if this is some kind of Mothman, T-Rex, big cat hybrid that the FBI has concocted scientifically in a lab somewhere in order to, maybe come take us out, prevent us from revealing the truths of the world around us. I don't know, it was terrifying. You can catch a very, very quick glimpse of it if you saw that stream way down last night, but we'll see. Some have hypothesized that maybe it was a bobcat, which, apparently there have been bobcats spotted on the streets of DC. So, that may be part of the explanation, but I will hold out the claim that it was much bigger and scarier than that. Anyway, something unlike I've ever seen on the streets of DC before. So anyway, we always run into interesting things here late at night, and we'll keep our eye out tonight. If anything attacks us, you guys are our eyes and ears as we make our way around. So as you can see, we're getting closer and closer to the U.S. Capitol. It may have been a chupacabra, yes, something like that. This is some Carrie Casty Illuminati shit. You speak French, Miguel? Oui, bien sûr. We do speak a little bit of French. Not a lot, but a little bit. Okay, guys. Anybody know when he said he saw the creature? What night? Lulu was on last night's stream. I can't remember the exact time on the video. It was very close to the end, and it was running around the National Archives, which is a little suspicious, given how much there has been in the news about the National Archives lately. Is this some kind of creature that the FBI has concocted to protect the National Archives from incursions by curious investigators like ourselves? I don't know. It could be. We are once again approaching the U.S. Capitol here, walking by the Capitol reflecting pool right now, where at the moment I'm not seeing any ducks, which is disappointing. Let's see. Can you give us an idea of why you live where you do? And is it expensive, Ryan? Well, why? I don't know. Existentially, why does anybody live anywhere? Why do we live in Washington? We live in Washington because that's where we've chosen at the moment to live, based on employment that we have. So, why downtown Washington? Because it's a very interesting place. And actually, there's a lot of actual interesting kind of residences in the heart of downtown DC. So That's why it's expensive. DC is an expensive city. I mean, generally speaking, if you've been here long enough and um, you can get some deals and stuff, but it's an expensive city to be sure. Anyway, again, this is the Capitol Dome emerging quickly before us. Oh, I heard maybe a rat. Maybe a rat behind us. Anytime there's trash cans, there's usually rats at night in DC. So we'll see. If we stumble on any rats tonight, I'll try to give a trigger warning to Emerald, who is petrified around the rats. Let me see. Why land Y final? Like, why do we live here? DJ, in all honesty, I believe the USA is full of squatches, alien-type cloaked beings, etc., and probably extraterrestrials. That's a lot of things. Those are all a little different from each other. Do you mean Sasquatches? I suppose DC might have some Sasquatches. Alien-type cloaked beings. Like, people that... I guess the premise behind the alien-type cloaked beings is that, like, many eons ago, aliens showed up via some kind of asteroid strike on the planet and have basically immersed themselves within the human population and have mixed DNA with some humans, and therefore there are some humans that carry like an alien lineage to them. I don't know. Maybe. So, listen to 25. If you slow down to 24%, land will sound drunk. That's true. If you slow the video down from last night to a very slow speed, it will sound like, it won't sound like my normal talking voice. You live within walking distance to all this. I would think that is unique. Says right. It is unique, Ryan. It is a very. It's a special thing, and I say that earnestly, and it's something that in the heat of, day-to-day affairs, it's easy to forget, how unusual that is. And I know a lot of people that have grown up in DC, that live in DC, that work, in very special places, places like the Capitol building, who take it for granted, who don't think of it as anything special. And I have always tried to challenge, myself to make sure while we have the opportunity to live here, that we enjoy it. I enjoy it at the very least. And, try to kind of learn a little bit and just sort of suck it all in or take it all in. So anyway, we're here at the U.S. Capitol, and I want to do a little bit of a deep dive again into the networks around the U.S. Capitol today, which we will do here in the next few minutes. But we're here at the west front of the U.S. Capitol, which I guess is where we'll begin. Looking back down toward the National Mall with the Washington Monument and the Lincoln Memorial behind it. And you can see there is the Washington and the Lincoln Memorial deceptively far away, like 3.5 miles away behind it. And this is the west front of the Capitol. We were here the end of last week. I think, Thursday last week? People were asking about this screen on the back side of the Capitol building. And I know this has showed up in a lot of the footage online. People are watching the January 6th hearings and things like that. It's very kind of odd-looking scaffolding because at night they have it draped in this the screen, and it's lit up. This, of course, is the back front of the Capitol where the inauguration happens every 4 years. And when the inauguration happens, they basically build a whole big set of a stage and a set of bleachers out here so they can have the big show when the president comes out to take the oath of office and give the inaugural address. And the president comes out of that little door when they do that. So normally every 4 years you have a big construction project on the back side of the building here. And it was when that giant set of scaffolding was built here in 2020 that the whole January 6th event happened. And basically what went down was, there was the big rally down at the far end of Pennsylvania Avenue, and then protesters walked down Pennsylvania Avenue and came here onto the Capitol grounds and gathered basically in this very spot before ultimately climbing the scaffolding. And then some of those folks that climbed the scaffolding jumped off of the scaffolding onto some of these platforms in the vicinity of the building and broke through the windows on this back side of the Capitol and infiltrated the building. There were other folks on the other side of the building that got in that direction, but that basically is where this all started. This project that they are building on the backside of the Capitol right now is unrelated either to the inauguration or to the actual events of January 6th. This really has nothing to do with that stage construction, nor does it have anything to do with safeguarding the Capitol in some way after that event. Basically what they're doing right now is it's a 4-part project, and basically they're trying to upgrade the stonework on the exterior of the Capitol building, which has a lot of kind of ornate carvings in it. You can see it's deceptively ornate, as I'm kind of zooming in here as best I can. And basically what they're doing is they're trying to have expert craftspeople come in and clean that, and also to repair some of the decaying stonework. This side of the Capitol building was expanded and rebuilt a few times over the centuries, and now this is a very long and ongoing project. They're going to have this scaffolding here for a while. After they complete this side of the building, they're actually going to build another set of scaffolding over here, and then build another set of scaffolding on the far side to complete the work, basically just kind of going around and repairing the entire thing. The reason it looks like this is that the work they're doing, basically they anticipate, because it's like power blasting and things like that, is going to have a lot of dust that flies off. And the intent here is to basically have kind of a draping there that blocks that dust. It's lit up because a lot of the workers work at night, and they try to do things that are noisy at night when the House and the Senate are not in session. So that's kind of how you got to this thing that looks like a giant screen here. Shadow state taxpayer money, your tax dollars at work. Now, guys, if there's some secret purpose for that, I have no idea. If that story is somehow a cover for something, I don't know. People can maybe surmise as they see fit on that. Once again, we're looking back down the National Mall here from more or less where the president gives the inaugural address, and it's it's quite a view. So I wanted to show you guys a few things here in the vicinity of the Capitol that we really haven't looked at or focused on here on past streams. But we'll make a little walk around here because, I think much as the network of steam tunnels and whatnot that connect into the FBI headquarters that we showed last night was interesting, there's a lot here at the Capitol that's interesting too. It's a completely different set of stuff. Williams says looks like a prison behind there. I don't know, is being in Congress like being in prison? There is the Senate chamber, by the way, where, Mitch McConnell and Chuck Schumer hang out. I don't know, do you think Mitch McConnell and Chuck Schumer do they secretly have drinks, smoke cigars in a back room somewhere? Or do they genuinely hate each other? The Capitol building it's amazing. That FBI headquarters where the explosions went off is actually about 3 times as big in terms of actual square feet as a building as is the Capitol building. That FBI headquarters is massive because the Capitol building is very, very, very big. But the FBI headquarters is much, much, much bigger. Now, the Capitol building was first opened in about 1801-ish. City of Washington gets planned in 1791 at the direction of George Washington and Thomas Jefferson. They plan a Capitol building, which at the beginning is fairly rudimentary. It basically only has one wing to it. It has no dome. It has a little wooden tunnel connecting the chambers. And it is hot as hell. Ultimately, the Capitol building has been added on to something like 11 times since it was originally opened. And it didn't have air conditioning until the 20th century. In the 1800s, down here in the swamp of Washington, it was really, really, really hot for the people that worked in the Capitol building to actually try to do any legislating. So they solved that initially by building the very first series of tunnels. I think last night somebody was asking about tunnels that dated back to the 1800s. The very first set of tunnels in the entirety of Washington that I know about that connect underground between things is a series of tunnels they built underneath the Capitol building that basically extend out from the Capitol building and that basically go underground, and they curl around here, basically under this sidewalk, and they connect into this structure. And people don't even notice this structure usually because it is basically completely buried in vegetation. You can see it has like cameras on it here looking back at the U.S. Capitol. But this structure, and I don't know what they do in the structure now, because certainly it is not used for right now for the original purpose. But originally, basically what they would do is they would load up this tower with giant blocks of ice. So they were able to get ice delivered into the city. They would load up the tower with ice as tall as they could. And they would basically put a propeller in the base of the tower here behind the ice, and basically what it would do is it would blow air by the ice all the way down this tunnel that runs under our feet back into the chambers of the Capitol building. It was the original rudimentary form of air conditioning that fed into the Capitol. Pretty great. Like, I feel like if I were being asked to like invent an air conditioning system from scratch, that's the kind of thing I would come up with. So anyway, I don't think they do that anymore. I don't think they have giant blocks of ice in here. I think they have a more conventional HVAC system. In fact, we'll talk about that here in a few minutes, because HVAC is certainly a subject of the moment when we're talking about the FBI, and it certainly has a whole network here at the Capitol too. So anyway, that tower has a history to it. That tower exists right next to another somewhat hidden little structure here in the shadow of the U.S. Capitol building that also has kind of a little bit of an under-the-table purpose, which is this building that is called the Hayes Summer Home. And this was basically a little... You guys can't see anything here, can you? Anyway, we're looking into this tiny little outdoor pavilion here that was built by former President Rutherford B. Hayes, who served from 1877 to 1881. Famous for inventing things like the estate tax. But he built this little summer house here so he could escape work and go do like kind of under the table dealings with his fellow Congress people out here. There you go, a little bit of a better view of this. It's a place to smoke weed, says David Miller. Well, I can't speak to things like that, but it could be. It's usually empty now. In fact, there are gates in it here at night preventing people from going into it. I mentioned that so often at night there are police cars and whatnot out here on the streets of DC. I have no idea what's going on. Random flashing police lights out here in front of the Capitol. Ryan, great narration and knowledge. Are the tunnels open to the public at all? To the public, Ryan, I don't think any of the tunnels we're going to show you today from above grade are open to the public, but they are generally, most of these tunnels are fairly well known about, and people who are badged into the Capitol are able to use them. So, you know, basically anybody who works at the Capitol, certain visitors, you know, aides, staffers, interns, people like that can use a lot of these tunnels. So we'll kind of walk you through some of the other tunnels up here that connect between interesting things. I am a little jumpy every time I hear rustling in the bushes after last night when, again, we were nearly attacked by some kind of chupacabra-like Mothman, T-Rex, lion bobcat hybrid creature that the FBI sicked on us. Maybe. But if you missed that on last night's stream, it's grainy footage. It's always grainy footage, isn't it? I guess I am sympathetic now to why we only have grainy footage of Bigfoot and the like, because it's hard. It's hard in the moment to capture the stuff that's rustling in the bushes behind you. The reptilians in DC. It might have been a reptilian. Yeah, might have been. Okay, let me see. What does badged in mean, Jeanette? Basically to get into the Capitol building and, not get arrested for it, you have to actually have, like, an official badge, documenting that you work as part of the Capitol ecosystem of employees. In order to get that, you need to obviously go through the hiring process and get hired into a job at the Capitol. Even once you're hired, you need to go through an extensive background and vetting and fingerprinting process in order to make sure that you're not somebody who, they don't want to be working close to those kinds of sensitive assets. And, at that point, when you actually work here, you'll see them occasionally when you walk around the Capitol. There's lots of people with little green badges. But basically, they have to show those and swipe those in order to get into things. All right. Did I catch the creature last night? Says Lulu. Could you see it when you went back? No, Lulu. We walked by that spot tonight. I was curious, and we couldn't see it. I assume it makes its way around, protecting the priceless assets of DC. So we caught a very, very, very blurry little clip of it. But no, other than that, was not able to catch it. And, again, if it takes us out tonight, you guys got to have our back. Was it a rat? That was a rat last night. It was a gigantic rat. I don't think that was a rat. We did have some rats, though, last night, too. If you like rats. If you don't like rats, I guess fair warning. It could be a hydra. It could be. Yep. Do police ever harass you while you're walking around? You know what? No. I mean, not really, no. We've had a few Secret Service agents say, like, hi to us. But no, I mean, I think they're used to people walking around. Certainly there are countries in the world where when you're around major government buildings, you're not allowed to take video or photography of major government buildings. The U.S. is obviously not like that. And so, no, I mean, I think generally they are used to people being around. And, I can't speak to things that might happen in the future, but to this point we've been, just kind of let be by folks as we walk around. If it weren't grainy, people would figure out it's a dude in a mask, says David Miller. Might have been a dude in a mask. I don't know, that's kind of scary to think about too. So, we're going to cut over a little bit this way. You can see these giant security mechanisms here on Capitol Hill, basically preventing vehicles from driving anywhere close to the actual Capitol building. The Capitol building does not stand on its own. I mean, it stands on its own, but it's part of a complex that includes a lot of other structures. And we're going to show you guys how some of those things interconnect tonight. This on our right is the U.S. Botanic Garden, which is, I can't remember which president. I think it was Jefferson, actually. Requested that a botanic garden be built as part of the Capitol building so you could have all the different plants from all different states. It's kind of weird and random. We have a botanical garden and the largest library in the world right there alongside our Capitol building. And it's kind of a weird combination of things. Anyway, it's a giant, ever been like a conservatory. It's basically like that. Big Dog, what is your job at the U.S. Capitol? I don't work at the U.S. Capitol, big dog. Let me see. Take us down in the tunnels, says Primitive X. We're going to show you guys tunnels. There's a limit to what we can, obviously get into here at night. What's your feeling of personal safety on the Capitol grounds versus, say, nearer to the White House, like in the downtown? It's all part of a big city, and big cities at night are places where you gotta kind of watch out for things at times. But I will say, generally speaking, the Capitol grounds feels a little bit more campusy, a little bit generally safer, I would say. There seem to generally be fewer people around. But anywhere federal, like, they really have like federal areas of the city on lockdown, as opposed to places that are part of the District of Columbia, like the city. As we're circling, they call the Bertoldi Fountain here on Capitol Hill. On previous streams, we discovered rabbits in the area here. And I don't know if we're going to see any rabbits today, but we are en route to some other interesting things to show you guys here on our journey around Capitol Hill. Once again, we started the stream talking a little bit about the FBI. Obviously, there continues to be a lot of interest and traffic around the various content we've posted around the FBI explosions from last week, which, since those explosions went off last Tuesday, we really have not heard anything at the FBI headquarters that has been similar. Whatever the issue was, they got it fixed. If it was a steam valve, which is what they say it was, I guess they figured out a way after 8 hours of getting that fixed or replaced or plugged or whatever they had to do. Other than that, we've talked about various other theories that people have offered. A lot of people have hypothesized that maybe it was something else, that it wasn't a steam valve. And all I can say is I don't know. I can't say definitively what it was. I don't have any more information than you do, except the information that we've shared on the stream, which is a little bit of background on some of the context for politics going on at the FBI around the building of a new headquarters, and the system that we tracked last night, which is the underground steam network that connects the FBI headquarters all the way down to a central plant in the L'Enfant Plaza area of DC, which is probably where that steam came from, if it was a steam valve. How many miles do I walk on average while reporting, says Margaret. You must be in excellent health. Well, we've been doing these streams now for 2.5 years, a little over 2.5 years. No, not quite 2.5 years. And when we're outside, if we stream for 3 hours, which is what we've been doing the last few nights, it's probably like 11 or 12 miles. I would say we tend to walk over the course of one of those streams, which is a lot of walking. Basically a half marathon every night. So I guess it's good for us. Is it good for you guys too? Maybe. The very first month we ever did this, in the summertime, when it was really hot, I ended up losing like 15 or 20 pounds that first month. But I don't really notice it anymore. I feel like my body's just kind of adapted to it. All right. D Green talking about college football. Yeah, they did fall in the rankings. Well, they lost. Not surprising. But yeah, we'll talk more college football in the coming days. So one of our side random hub in the middle of the street. Let's see. I can walk and talk and chew gum at the same time. Does it sound like I'm chewing gum? Let's see. Library of Congress celebrates flora and fauna in its design and messaging, says David Miller. Yeah, and if you look really, really, really closely when you're in the Library of Congress, there's little flower motifs in the ceiling. And in a lot of places, in the center of those flower motifs, they have little sprinkler heads. When the Library of Congress was first built, obviously it was not equipped with a sprinkler system, but they had to add that in after the fact. So in case a big fire breaks out, they could, save the place. So they built all the those little sprinkler heads into the very tip top of those little flower sculptural things. Let's see, guys. Once again, if you're just joining Land Speculation here on YouTube tonight, guys, I appreciate you hanging out with us. If you haven't dropped a like or subscribe on the video, I do appreciate that. Those likes help us out with YouTube. The subscribes help you guys know when we're on. Check our description for links to our Discord and our Duck Fund. I am en route to a couple places that I'm going to show you tonight, and then we're going to kind of dig into some of the details here of the Capitol complex as we go along. So, if you're with us, stay with us. We got interesting stuff to go see. And if you have thoughts on, the FBI or other things, we're happy to talk about that stuff here tonight. And if you want to keep talking, in addition to liking and subscribing, check our description, which has links to our Discord and our Duck Fund. The Discord is our 24/7 chat platform, and the Duck Fund is our PayPal link. The sense in DC now is that the concept of making government work well is the epitome of counterculture. So, guys, last night we took you on a journey from the FBI headquarters to the central plant that feeds 57 different federal buildings in Washington, with steam, and basically just feeds the heating and cooling and water systems of a lot of those buildings in various ways, from a network of boilers and chillers and things like that. We talked about how the Capitol is completely independent from that network, which means the Capitol itself has to have a completely independent system that feeds all of its buildings with their own heating and cooling and things like that. And that is where we are right now. This right here is the Capitol Power Plant. The Capitol building has its own power plant, which is gigantic, because the Capitol complex, basically just the complex of things that support the Congress and their job, is so big that it's basically like running an entire city within the city of Washington. And you can hear overhead the sound of some of the flowing water, I believe in some of the chillers there, that is part of the process of generating some of that heat. And it is, of course, surrounded by heavy fencing here. But this is basically the origin point of the massive utility network of tunnels that connects between buildings on this side of Washington. Actually, you can see into it there a little bit. It's a massive, massive facility here. And those big screens there basically mask the giant chillers located within its footprint. But it generates a massive amount of energy and water. Any tunnels under the Washington Monument? Well, last night we walked by the Washington Monument. It actually is one tunnel that runs parallel to the Washington Monument, very close there, which actually is part of the tunnel system that connects between the central plant of Washington and the White House. So I don't know what that means. If the president really wanted to basically walk underground from the White House to the Washington Monument, I suppose they basically could. I don't know why they would want to do that. But I suppose it's possible. And maybe just on a lark, you could find a president that would want to do that. So we've basically gone so far, basically to the south of the Capitol, that we are now kind of in like the Capitol Hill neighborhood. And, Capitol Hill is a neighborhood in addition to the actual congressional buildings. And from here, I'm going to track us back up into the Capitol complex and show you guys some of the other locations, some of the other underground connections that exist between things there. Do I ever get nervous about walking around at night? Somebody's asking. Yeah, I would say every night we're out and about. I gotta kind of keep an eye on things. Just a little bit. Let's see, what's back here? I don't know. We're just gonna wander back into some random alleys and see if that connects us where we want to go. Maybe not. I thought this was gonna take us somewhere, but it might not. Okay, this is not gonna help us out. Anyway, you can see some of the smokestacks here from the power plant. Michelle. Shadow state? What do we mean by shadow state? Emerald, did you miss any rats? I don't think you missed any rats. But if we see rats, I will try to warn you ahead of time if I can. Of course, they scurry pretty quickly. Let's see, guys. Oh, there's something down there. That might have been a rat. Not sure. So we're going to turn the corner here and walk by this building, which is a completely nondescript building, but it's quite a significant building. Over here in this corner of DC, we can get to it because this is the headquarters of the Democratic National Committee, which is the headquarters of the National Democratic Party. So we do all the strategizing about who's going to win between Hillary and Bernie Sanders gets decided within these boundaries here of this building. Anyway, this is a very powerful building here. Somebody's asking, how do I know the locations of all the tunnels in DC? I have to do some research, guys. You can find out about stuff. Is the T-Rex again? I don't think that was a T-Rex, guys. I don't know if the T-Rex comes up on Capitol Hill, but maybe it does. I think the T-Rex is pretty much confined to the FBI, IRS, National Archives, and Department of Justice headquarters there in the heart of downtown. But I could be wrong. I would think it has its hands full protecting those buildings. Okay, Emerald's nervous for me. Well, guys, if I get, if anything happens, like I said, you're my eyes and ears. Like I said, the most potent weapon we have when we're out on the streets of Washington in the middle of the night is that, we have 90 witnesses with us. See, there's just like random houses here. Since we get past these random houses, we're back into the core of the Capitol complex. Not quite the core of the Capitol complex, but the periphery of the Capitol complex. But basically, under where we're walking right now, there are, of course, pipes that carry steam from the Capitol power plant, where we just were, over to the buildings of Capitol Hill. And you can faintly, very faintly in the background hear some of the steam vents. I believe are over to our right. Somebody's asking, do all the tunnels have vents over them? Well, the steam tunnels do, periodically. And I don't know what the sequencing of that venting is, but if you build steam tunnels, basically you have to have venting periodically. And we can basically track those tunnels, the steam tunnels, whether it's at the Capitol here or in downtown DC, because they all have, some level of venting over them periodically. So we were able to do that a little bit last night. Now, where we are right now is at the very southern end of the Capitol complex, where they have built these gigantic and somewhat inexplicable parks, which are almost never used because they don't have really any good shade in them during the day, and are, I don't know, they just seem weird. But these giant parks basically abut right next to the neighborhood of Capitol Hill here, and they are leaking water. Something's leaking water there. There's like random water leaking out of a planter bed there. That's not suspicious at all. Why is that happening? I don't know. So, anyway, there's a tree spraying water. It's going pee-pee, says Bequeathius. Yep. And I believe that connects back into this fountain. So this park basically sits on top of an underground parking garage. Basically the roof of that underground parking garage, which was built actually for the public originally. So, although it feels like we're just in a park, there's basically a whole underground world that is starting to percolate beneath us. It's going to continue through basically all these buildings. There's two major blocks of these giant parks here at the southern end of the Capitol complex that have parking underneath them, that are connected between them by a series of underground tunnels, which also connect into tunnels that then feed, and you can see some venting over there. They try to tuck these things in places where you can't really see it, but there's some venting there that connects through a series of tunnels back into the buildings we are immediately adjacent to, which there are basically three of them here. The Rayburn House office building over here. This is the Longworth House office building here. And this is the Cannon House office building over here. These are all basically House office buildings where the House of Representatives people have their staff level offices. Each of them has maybe 10 or 12 offices as part of a little suite, and there are 435 members in the House of Representatives, so it ends up being a lot of space they have to occupy. Plus there are committee rooms and places for like the January 6th committee to meet. So those kind of all happen in these three buildings. The first one that was built was the Cannon building over here, and that was, I want to say, like 1907. And that was followed up by the Longworth building, and they were connected by a set of underground tunnels. And those tunnels, again, connect under the street here over to this park. And then this building up here, which is the most recently built House office building, which has a gigantic parking garage. It's at the lowest grade level here of Capitol Hill, so it has a lot of parking underneath it. Has a gigantic parking garage. It also has within its parking garage an underground gym for the Congress people to basically work out in, and apparently also has a shooting range underground. for members of the Congress, which is, you know, quite an interesting little thing. And it houses a lot of the congressional offices. You can see the dome is up ahead of us. So all three of these buildings are connected by underground tunnels. You can see it here. I guess there's a good map of this. So we started basically down here off the map where the power plant is located. I guess it's even a little bit further off the map down here. And we've been walking, well, we kind of came up here. We walked through this park that was located here. And we were just pointing out these three buildings right here, which connect underground through an underground subway connection from the Rayburn building here into the Capitol building over here. It basically kind of cuts like this. And when people talk about there being an underground subway system underneath the Capitol complex, there are actually two of them. There's a subway system that connects here from the Rayburn building into the U.S. Capitol. And there's another subway system, actually older subway system, that connects from the Capitol on the Senate side over to this building, the Russell building, which is a Senate office building. So the Senate has two office buildings over here, the Russell and the Hart, and I guess the Dirksen is connected to the two. So these couple buildings here, they're connected by underground tunnels between them and then connected by a subway to the Capitol. And the Capitol is also connected by another subway that connects to the Rayburn building, which is connected by underground tunnels to these other congressional office buildings here. So, under the park, yes, under the park, Jeanette. So basically all these buildings are connected by tunnels, which are not shown here on this map. We're also going to walk by the Library of Congress buildings over here, which are also all connected by tunnels. And they too are connected by another set of tunnels back into the Capitol building. And they are also connected to a tunnel to the Supreme Court. So basically everything up here is connected by a lot of tunnels. And they're not secret per se, they're known about, but they are certainly, you know, not everybody knows about them. And the utility tunnels that connect from the power plant down here up through these buildings up into the Capitol building, most of the main steam tunnels actually travel here along First Street, up by the Capitol, past the Senate buildings here, and then actually feed all the way up off this map to Union Station, which is over here. So there's a pretty extensive network of underground connections here on Capitol Hill. And we're going to walk a couple of them here over the course of the stream tonight. Okay. They traffic children, that's why, says John. These are, you think they're tunnels for trafficking children? I don't know, like, why would they need to traffic children between the congressional office buildings and the Capitol building? You know, I feel like even if there are people in Congress that were doing that, the last place they'd want to take children like that is actually into the Capitol. That seems like an easy place to have that get found out. There's a lot of media and people like that over there. Jess, what are you referring to about Pelosi? Anyway, somebody's talking about, I'm sure lots of comments about Pelosi here. Apparently there's a Dutch guy that does earthquake updates. That I sound like? That could be me. Funny, they want to get rid of the Second Amendment, but they have a private taxpayer-funded shooting range for the Congress, says M. Campbell. You guys can look that up. I've been told that exists. So basically right under here, as we look toward the Capitol, more or less under our feet is where those subway tunnels connect between the Rayburn office building right here and the Capitol building. One of the reasons those tunnels are significant, basically that's where the underground subway is. One of the reasons that subway is significant is because a lot of the Congress people that fled the Capitol building back to their offices on January 6th took that tunnel to get back to their offices. So there were basically people on January 6th that were both inside the Capitol and people that were inside these House office buildings. And there was obviously a lot of testimony by people like Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez about people that basically had, were basically marauding down the hallways where her offices were. When she says that, she's talking about the offices that were in this building right here, the Rayburn building. When she says she was hiding in her office, it was in that building. So a lot of people were sort of making fun of that at the time, that she was a long way away. The rioters were only here in the Capitol. There actually were people, in the hallways of some of these office buildings, which you can get into via the main entrances here if you have an appointment. So there are just sort of ordinary people often walking the halls of some of these buildings. But obviously on January 6th, people were kind of made their way into some of those buildings anyway. I don't know if any of them made their way down into the subway tunnel. But, it is very possible that's what happened. So, I'm going to cross here. This is Independence Avenue. You can see how steep this hill is. Actually, it's Capitol Hill. And I'm going to walk actually up a little bit. Do a little bit of a jaunt to the Library of Congress before we go further tonight. This is the Cannon building. It's a pretty building. Separate lines to Dirksen Hart versus Russell. 2 lines on the Senate side. So, yeah, they are separate systems. They don't connect to each other. The underground subway on the House side and the underground subway on the Senate side. Senate side actually does have 2 separate tunnels that basically run immediately parallel to each other. Okay. Anyway, a lot of wonky detail here about the tunnels, which I don't know, is that interesting or not? Sometimes I never know quite how deep to go into information when we're sharing things here on the stream. I hope this is interesting for people. But let me know. Let me know if people are bored as we go along. Michelle's saying they traffic children from the Capitol to the White House. Yeah, that's more complicated, Michelle, because actually it's unclear whether there are underground tunnels, even utility tunnels, that connect all the way between the Capitol and the White House. They probably get close, and there may be. They may have at some point figured, we've got this whole network affiliated with the White House and the downtown executive agencies, and then we've got this giant network on the Capitol. Why not just build a little link between them so that if anybody needed to, you could get between things underground? It's possible. But whether or not they've trafficked children under those tunnels, people can surmise whatever they like. I see. I must say they also traffic weapons and drugs. When you're just taking it across the street, does it count as trafficking? I've not ever heard of a shooting range on the Capitol grounds, says David Miller. I'll dig a little bit more into it, David. Okay. So we're now basically between a couple of the different Library of Congress buildings. On the left is the main Library of Congress building, the Jefferson building. I'll go take a look at that here in just a moment. And then this is the Madison building. And the Adams building is back here. These buildings are all also connected by underground tunnels. This entire building here is basically nothing but a book storage building for the Library of Congress. They just put a lot of books and other materials stored in there. There's a lot of books in the Library of Congress, as you can imagine. Is there any evidence you've heard or seen read deeper cities underneath DC that some truthers talk about? Like an entire underground city in DC? Like, as in the Capitol was built on top of like a whole buried Atlantis city or something? That would be very, very, very hard to pull off. The city is already in like incredible lowlands. It's literally in the swamp. A big chunk of DC 100 years ago was literally part of the Potomac River. Where the Lincoln Memorial is today, 120 years ago was literally like water. It was literally the Potomac River. It would be very hard to build something under that. So, you know, I guess I would say it seems unlikely that there is an entire underground city beneath that. Now, we know there are some underground things beneath that. For instance, like, we were talking last night about the buried creek that basically exists underground inside of now a tunnel underneath the IRS and Department of Justice headquarters. And are there things that happen in those tunnels that we don't know about? I don't know. I don't know. Here's a vent. Every time we see these vents, we probably have steam tunnels underneath. ODC says MSM liars. Let's see, Brad, I'm enjoying all of this. Someone who hasn't been to DC, it's great to see the inside look. Well, we're spending tonight basically here on the Capitol grounds. So, last several nights we spent most of our time basically in downtown DC, looking at some of the various federal agencies. But in a moment, we're going to show you guys the Capitol building and the Supreme Court and stuff like that, which we hope is also interesting. But there is the backside of the main Library of Congress building, the Jefferson Building. Ryan says, yes, tunnels are interesting. We'd have to actively search this out ourselves, which means we knew about them. This is new to most people. And I know it's sort of hard to place. We're talking about things, especially when it's night, and it's kind of hard to see context of stuff. I know sometimes it's hard for people to place exactly what we're talking about. So if you guys ever want me to do like a location check, I'm happy to do that. If people are like ever looking stuff up on a map as we go along. But, you know, these little maps of the Capitol complex are sometimes helpful. Let's see. We're basically here now. We're going to turn the corner here and go back in front of the Library of Congress, check out the Capitol building, check out the Supreme Court here. Here's more vents. Steam tunnels, most likely here, which would make sense, given the way the network of steam tunnels sort of encircles some of these buildings on this block. Basically, they have these steam tunnels all basically connect back to that power plant we were at a few minutes ago. Someday land will have a building named after him, the Duck Institute. Yeah, that'd be fun. That'd be fun, big dog. Jordan, The whole DC has dumbs underneath. I swear Barry and Clinton used to have their parties. So the idea of dumbs is deep underground military bases underneath DC. I mean, we know that some of the buildings in DC go way deep underground. Like the White House has 5 basements. And we know there's this network of utility tunnels. There's a lot of suspicion around the Ronald Reagan building, which took forever and a huge amount of money to build back in the early 1990s. And we know included a few tunnels between things. Are there military bases underneath that? I don't know. I heard one of the theories around the FBI explosions last week was that they were blowing up those underground military bases. I don't know why they'd be doing that. I also don't know why you would only hear that in one place there at the top of the FBI headquarters. It certainly did not sound like it was coming from underground. So, if that's some people are hypothesizing, I guess I need some more explanation for how exactly that would work. Here's somebody saying free Iran. So Iran's going through some of its own shit right now. A lot of places are going through shit right now around the world. We've been focusing mainly on DC the last several nights, but as soon as we're back inside to do a deep dive, we gotta get caught up on all the craziness going on in the world, specifically craziness in Ukraine that continues to percolate, craziness in Iran, continued antics with China. There's a lot going on around the world. Not to mention in our own country. There's stuff going on in Britain right now. Europe's melting down with an energy crisis that people predicted. Germany went groveling to Canada for help with natural gas, and Canada said, no way, we're keeping our natural gas. All right, it smells like chlorine here. I guess it's because we're in front of a fountain here. DC, City of Fountains. Here you have some fountains here in front of the Library of Congress. Again, the Jefferson Building. We got like some guys and some ladies on horses here. And they're all naked, having a good time here. It's always struck me as a rather odd fountain. It's like some of these horses, like this horse seems to be in great distress. And this guy here seems to be showing off a fair bit. And the water looks awfully green and smells heavily chlorinated. Did you relook the video, Duck? What was your scary creature? Curious minds want to know. Robin is asking. So we talked a little bit about that earlier. What was the scary creature that we stumbled into last night on the stream that was coming after us? We think it was probably some kind of scary Mothman, T-Rex, lion, bobcat hybrid thing that the FBI sicked after us to prevent us from unearthing the real truth of what's really going on in Washington. I don't know. No, we were not able to discern fully what the creature was. Somebody was hypothesizing it might have been a bobcat, which actually have been spotted around DC a couple times in the last couple of years. So we're now here at the main entrance to the Library of Congress, and we've got a sign telling us the door is closed, which I can visibly see because the door itself is closed. But here's basically a view into the Library of Congress. And, this is pretty spectacular spaces in itself. But if you look basically directly forward through those double doors down there, those are basically the doors that would take you into that giant reading room Ever seen National Treasure 2? That is the giant reading room that contains the president's Book of Secrets, or at least did in that movie. So anyway, that's if you're going to visit the Library of Congress, basically this is where you would go in to visit it. M. Campbell, I do enjoy your knowledge of DC. It's great to have a live show. Well, thanks very much, M. Campbell. How often are these streams, Ryan? Basically every night during the regular work week. We stream a lot. Not every single night, but most nights during the regular week. We definitely don't take Saturdays off, almost always. Sometimes we do stream on Fridays. Sometimes we occasionally stream on Sundays. But during the week, we're almost always on. Never seen a city with nobody outside walking around. Well, keep in mind perfectly that it's almost 2 in the morning here in DC. GH, thanks for stopping by. Robin says, foreign land, Vatican dick suckers. What about the famous hospital that doesn't exist? Isn't there a deep underground military base there? I don't know, AMC. Do people here value democracy? If not, how should leaders be decided? Interesting question, David. Do people value democracy? I don't know. I think democracy's fine. I'm ambivalent toward it. I don't know. I think there are parts of the world where they've made monarchy work relatively well. Obviously, there's a lot of risk there. If your monarchy is not benevolent, I think you can have an oligarchy sometimes. I think the saying, the best argument against democracy is to spend 5 minutes talking to the average voter. So we came basically down a ramp here, and we're basically now here at the entrance to what is called the Capitol Visitor Center. This is basically the underground entrance for if and when you want to actually visit the Capitol building. In 1998, well, back in the 90s, you basically would just be able to walk up to the Capitol building. In the 80s, you could actually drive basically right up to the front steps of the Capitol building. You can't get anywhere close these days because in 1998, there was an active shooter that basically started shooting on the east front of the U.S. Capitol. And basically, in the aftermath of that, they launched the construction of this giant facility here, the Capitol Visitor Center. And basically, this is a kind of welcoming hall. It's a security space and a big welcoming hall, an underground museum. If you want to go visit the U.S. Capitol, you got to go through security here, which you can see right in front of us. One of these big metal detectors and whatnot. It's basically like being at the airport. And then you basically get fed into a giant hall where you wait in line for a very long time. And here's, I guess, where you book a tour if you want to take a tour. There's a QR code if you go to do that. Generally speaking, I think people say the best way to get a tour is to contact your congressperson. Anyway, this is basically a giant hall in here, and I don't know if we have any good views of this direction anyway. And there's a tunnel that basically goes from this underground hall across under the plaza ahead of us, and feeds into the Capitol building itself. So this doesn't really do it justice. There's a statue over there. When they built this, of course, they also took the time to build a lot of additional underground space for the Capitol. And when they were showing some of those videos of Nancy Pelosi and others around January 6th, basically in what sort of seemed like nondescript underground spaces, I suspect those were probably part of this facility, because I think there's a lot of this Capitol Visitor Center. They have not publicly released the floor plans to. So there's probably a public component to this. There's also a private component to it, and certainly connections. When they built this, they basically had to rebuild the tunnel between the Library of Congress over here and the Capitol building. Interestingly, the Library of Congress used to be actually part of the Capitol building itself, because the Library of Congress started out as Thomas Jefferson's personal library. He basically just moved it into the Capitol building. And people kept adding books to it, kind of on an ad hoc basis. It eventually became too large. The Capitol building couldn't accommodate it anymore. So I believe it was 1904, they built the Thomas Jefferson building behind us. And there was a lot of concern at the time that Congress people who needed those books to access learned stuff wouldn't be able to access those books without getting all hot and sweaty. And so they built basically a giant underground pneumatic tunnel to be able to fire the books from the Library of Congress over here, sort of like the ball return thing at the bowling alley, back into the Capitol building. So, good times. So here we are at the Capitol building, which, again, basically under our feet, is the Visitor Center. These giant skylight things are basically just skylights down into the Visitor Center here. You can basically see they're just giant aerial windows. You can actually see, if you look all the way down, you can more or less see into that space, which then feeds underground into the crypt of the Capitol building, which has opened up this plaza here in front of the Capitol building, and it seems like there's basically nothing to it. You can't even get in the front door anymore because they have fencing there. And actually, not only do they have fencing, but they have a cop car parked literally there at the base of those stairs, just to intimidate the hell out of everyone who might even think about trying to enter the Capitol building. Here's another one of these giant skylights. Okay. It's Olympian Zeus. Roman and Greek mythology are false gods, says Robin. Okay, so the thing last night may have been a Nancy shape-shifting into a lizard. It looked more like a fox. Has Biden been put up on the presidential wall yet? Yeah, for some reason, the fact that the White House Visitor Center has some wall where they list the presidents and, perpetually behind schedule. I guess they hadn't put up Biden's name yet. For some reason, this has really excited people. I wouldn't read too much into it. Ryan says there's been so much dishonesty and over-the-top stuff that is true, like the Lolita Express, that there is no trust anymore, and people consider the wild theories. I don't blame them. Yeah, Ryan, I think it's a really interesting point. So we covered this FBI explosion stuff last week, and at first glance, there's a really obvious explanation for it, and probably it is what happened. This is just a steam valve thing. But when they don't release any information about it, and they basically treat everyone who inquires like they're, stupid, I don't blame people for kind of, having their antennas aroused. Some of the ideas that have been floated are probably not true. They probably were not executing aliens on the roof of the FBI headquarters last week. I think if that had been the case, we would have smelled the remnants of the bodies of the aliens as they were being shot. And, we counted like 1,600 explosions. And that's a lot of aliens to have, taken out in one night without somebody smelling the, the rotting flesh of all those aliens. But it's an interesting point that this has garnered so much attention. People are very skeptical. And, I think you can kind of take that in a couple different ways. On the one hand, you can read that and say, wow, those are a bunch of crazy theories. Or you can look at that and you think like, boy, okay, what does that say about how and why people are so skeptical of some of the things the government is telling them? What has the government done to kind of arouse such distrust generally? And I think it would be very prudent for folks within the government and in Washington generally to take a little bit more seriously when people are skeptical of them. When people are willing to consider wild theories in place of the sort of official narratives on things, that maybe that says something about the track record of some of those quote-unquote official narratives. So I think you make a good point. Robin saying, never saw me get scared like last night when that giant beast the FBI sicked after us came after us. Yeah. Okay, Jessa B is also asking about Biden on the wall of the presidents. So that would not be in this visitor center. That's a separate visitor center for the White House. This is the Capitol Visitor Center. What's the name of the hospital for the crazy people in D.C.? So the St. Elizabeth's Hospital, which is way south of here, basically used to be the D.C. hospital for the insane back when we used to have those kinds of things. But there are some tunnels underneath that hospital. Now, does that mean there's a secret military base underneath that hospital? I couldn't say that. But yes, there are tunnels underneath the St. Elizabeth's Hospital. Jay Luther's worried I'm time traveling in the chat again. A little bit. So, and we're here in front of the Capitol building. I want to get caught up here. We spent 3 times the amount of money giving to the Ukraine as we did the entire Apollo program going to the moon, including all 15 Apollo missions, says Ryan. And we spent a lot on the moon missions. Heathen, I love my freedom and I am grateful. Well, we certainly have spent a lot of money on Ukraine. A lot of people are not super happy about that. Yeah, the hospital is the St. Elizabeth's Hospital. Let me see. David is saying, basically, are you actually ambivalent about democracy? No, I was sort of making light of what I felt like was basically a straw man question. I don't know, like, if anybody has some great animosity toward the idea of democracy, I'd be curious to hear the premise. I don't know that it really does a whole lot of good to, like, I don't know what the point of asking the question honestly is. Let me see. Was the fox screaming help, AMC? No, it was silent. It was silently tracking us from behind. AMC, I'm telling you, it was a steam valve failing. How big was the animal you saw last night? Lulu is asking. First you said it was huge. Fox is not huge. Yeah, but it was gigantic. It may appear very small on the video last night, but that's just perspective. It was actually really enormous. All right, let me see, guys. I'm just trying to get caught up here on the chat. I don't believe in reptilians myself, says Lulu, at least not that they're real creatures or aliens. I believe from what I've seen on it that they're demonic beings. Aubrey says democracies lead to majority rule, which isn't always a good thing. And Campbell says, remember, we're not a democracy. We're a democratic republic. There's a big difference, or at least we were. All right, well, there's the Capitol. So this side of the Capitol is the House of Representatives. This side of the Capitol is the Senate. It's very quiet here, except for, I guess, a few people accessing. You can see for each side of the building, there's basically a little porte cochere where if you are being driven to the Capitol in one of the fleet of buildings that transport congresspeople and senators to the building, that's kind of under those porticos is where they would drop them off. Usually you see a bunch of like black Cadillac SUVs during the day on either side. Up around the plaza, they have obviously a lot of little gates here up on the plaza. They can close this off from a security standpoint at any time. And there's a fountain here. Usually is on during the day. Jay Lucas says it's not majority rule, maybe it's majority of the money rules. Yeah, there's a little bit of that going on too. Although not always. Money does not always triumph. And sometimes it makes the people that put in the money very unhappy when the money doesn't effectively drive the election. I mean, money in campaigns only works if the things that money buys actually causes people's votes to be affected. You know, it's interesting that like you can fund a lot of money into a campaign. What the campaign usually uses that for is commercials. And those commercials are effective basically at brainwashing people into believing that one of the candidates is better than the other, and thus more people vote for one of the candidates. Like, money can't directly buy a campaign, but it can certainly buy the brainwashing tools that are used to sway the opinions of the masses. So, you know, lest people think they are clear thinkers, we are all swayed by the information around which we immerse ourselves. So be very wary of the kinds of messaging you hear on political commercials, which sometimes is so laughably absurd that you can see right through it, but sometimes it's not. I gotta zoom out because it's probably just disorienting people a little bit when we're zoomed in. Constitution is a nice document. Not sure why the problemo is, but hey, says Kelly. Hey, Kelly. I dare you to go exactly where you saw the creature and investigate. Ooh, we might do that. You know, on the back end of tonight's stream, we might check out that same spot. So, this is the Library of Congress. And again, you know, we talked about there being tunnels. There's a tunnel between the Library of Congress over there and the Supreme Court. And the Supreme Court, of course, is connected back into the Capitol Visitor Center, which, of course, connects back to the Capitol building. Everything's connected. But this is the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court kind of stands very much on its own because it's a completely different branch of government from the Congress. So they like to handle their own affairs over here. But, you know, very beautiful building. I think it dates to like 1935. The Supreme Court itself used to be located inside the Capitol building as well. In fact, the Supreme Court, back in the very early days of the United States, didn't really have a space of its own at all. In fact, it basically was the justices of the Supreme Court would travel the country like independently, and then they'd only come back to Washington a few weeks a year. And as the court grew, the caseload got so big they eventually had to establish circuit courts around the country. And so the Supreme Court had to basically exist here in Washington, and originally it existed in the Capitol building. When they added wings to the Capitol and built new spaces for the Congress and for the Senate, the Supreme Court basically occupied the old Senate chamber within the Capitol building. And it did so for a long time. But eventually it even outgrew that space, and it moved up here into its own building here, the Supreme Court building. So again, this is about 1935 when this was built. And, you know, this was kind of a big deal several months ago when that draft opinion got leaked there at the Supreme Court. You know, the opinion that ultimately overturned Roe versus Wade got leaked. And people were wondering, how did that opinion get leaked? Like, did somebody sneak it out of the building? Was there a staffer that emailed it or something? And, you know, or was it like a physical draft that got moved? Then, of course, the actual opinion came down, and people were out here protesting for several months in the early summer. And for a long time, you had big barricades out here in front of the Supreme Court building, and protesters out here every day. Because anytime you have a big controversial opinion here at the Supreme Court, you get protesters. So, like, when the Bush versus Gore decision came down in 2000, there were tons of people up here. Anytime a justice dies, people come up here to, you know, kind of mourn and protest and things like that. But obviously right now, all that energy has dissipated, and it's very quiet up here in front of the Supreme Court. There are still little barricades there in front of the steps, so we can't walk up the steps toward the building. We did try that a long time ago, once before there was barricades were there, and we got yelled at by a Secret Service person. But this is a plaza up here. Usually there are these little fountains here at the edges of the plaza are on during the day. They're not right now. But these little fountains are, I guess they have water, like just standing water in them. And I guess American flag. Kind of a nice little plaza up here. A few little stars up there. And we look back across the plaza toward the Capitol building. Land try Metro, says Kelly. That'd be an interesting stream sometime, Kelly. It's for us to just ride Metro. Obviously, I don't think we'd have service down there, but we need to record it ahead of time, maybe. Jay Luther thinks Ronald Reagan was awful. There's a lot of people, like in, you know, academia, a lot of people on the far left in big cities that still will, you know, to their dying day, swear that Reagan's presidency was not successful. Probably the most popular presidency in a century. I don't think that's wild to say. A lot of people look at FDR as having had a, you know, very iconic presidency, but you know, certainly the, you know, for anybody that lived through the late 1970s, you know, what the Reagan administration meant to the country was, you know, just transformational. You know, and he remains very, very popular across a broad cross-section of Americans. But I guess there are still those that, you know, don't like that era in American history. Kelly says, run, land, run. So we were, yeah, it was kind of weird. We were standing there in the Supreme Court steps. And I was telling you guys about the Supreme Court. We had a bunch of Capitol Police officers kind of roaming like right behind us. It was a little disconcerting. But, you know, they just let us be. I'm going to actually go back a little bit this way. How late do the bars and restaurants stay open in DC, says Aubrey. You know, Aubrey, it's been a long time since I spent a lot of time late at night at bars and restaurants in DC. You know, pre-pandemic, there were definitely bars in DC that would stay open quite late, depending on where you were. There are parts of DC near DuPont Circle that are pretty darn hopping late at night. Adams Morgan, U Street, parts of DC are pretty freaking nuts on Friday nights. And some of those bars stay open extremely late. At least they did. You know, talking 3 or 4 in the morning. Downtown DC, I'm sure you don't have anything staying open anywhere near that late. Is there anybody out there? Yeah, we're out here. God is watching, says Robin. Dunn is giving us a rabbit. Thanks, Dunn. Secret Service is wondering what the hey you're doing around there. It's probably not Secret Service. I think those are Capitol Police officers. Let's see. Yes, Supreme Court is not directly tunneled to the Capitol, says David. I think that's actually right, David. That's a very astute catch. As you can tell, these streets are pretty quiet. And here we have more like security barricades here. You don't buy the election, you buy the politicians, says Jay Luther. Man, you are not good at acting dumb. My favorite thing about the U.S. Supreme Court building, says David Miller, is that it has a basketball court on the top floor. It does. Not a huge one, but, you know, every winter they play, you know, conservative justices versus liberal justices, a little pickup game. It used to be pretty good game, because it used to be 5-4. Now it's a 6-3 game. It's very one-sided. You know, Sonia Sotomayor, star player for the liberal justices side. I don't know if any of the justices actually use the basketball court. It's a fun image to think about. AMC, we allowed to say anything about politics? You can say anything you want as long as it's respectful and within reason, AMC. So yes, whatever your political views on here are, you can share them with us. We are open to all viewpoints, but please just do be respectful, and, you know, we just don't like personal attacks. I think we kind of shy away from here on Land Speculation on YouTube, which, by the way, if you are watching Land Speculation on YouTube and you have not dropped a like or a subscribe on our video, I do appreciate that. The likes help us out with YouTube. The subscribes help you guys know when we're on. So I appreciate both those things. Make sure to check our description as well. That has links to our Discord and our Duck Fund. The Discord is our 24/7 chat platform, which you are free to join. And the Duck Fund is our PayPal link, which is it is totally free to send as much money our way as you want. And here is a giant sprinkler thing with a giant stream of water coming out of the ground randomly here. They're watering the grass. They're also watering the sidewalk. They're watering this tree over here. They've created a like a tsunami here of rainwater. I'm getting wet right now. I'm not even that close to the sprinklers here. But it's a little cold out at night, it feels like, for a giant street fountain here. But it's kind of fun. Ruth Bader Ginsburg rips as Kelly. Yeah, mainstream media, lamestream media. I have been accused of being part of the lamestream media. Am I part of the lamestream media, guys? I thought we were like alternative media of some kind. Reagan told killer jokes. True. M. Campbell, the metro used to be pretty safe and cool. I would take it from Baltimore into D.C. when I lived there many weekends. Then from Wilmington to Philadelphia. Now, I don't think that's the metro. You might have been taking the MARC system, the Maryland Regional Rail. Just saying, admit I missed my turn. I actually did not miss my turn. I just I reconsidered where we should go next. Aubrey says, when I was liberal, I didn't like Reagan. Now as a conservative, I do like him. But I am concerned he was a member of the Bohemian Grove. I will say I'm not familiar with the Bohemian Grove. Vinyl wants to do a bar crawl stream. 1 drink per bar until you puke or pass out on the mall. That sounds like a really, really prudent idea, Vinyl. Very smart and thoughtful. Yeah, really, really appreciate that suggestion. Godspeed. Welcome. How did so many Americans miss the unit in history class on the factors identifying authoritarian takeovers of nations? Authoritarian takeovers of nations. I think it's always a risk, I suppose. I think there are a lot of pitfalls that befell nations in the 20th century that people can identify like seeds of here in the U.S. here in the 21st century, and that's a little scary. You know, a lot of the sort of thought policing stuff, I think, has people particularly alarmed. You know, the blending of sort of secular religiosity with the way the country is managed, I think is you know, kind of harkens to like Castro and Mao and things like that. It's a little scary. This restaurant is the Monocle Restaurant. This is a restaurant where a lot of the senators notoriously come to eat steak and things like that. I don't know how good the food is here. I guess it's decent here at the Monocle on Capitol Hill. but it just kind of sits here randomly next to the headquarters for the U.S. Capitol Police, which is next door, which is actually a gigantic building. There is their headquarters here for the Capitol Police. And they got a giant parking lot behind their building. Susie Q is with us. Hi, Susie Q. Are Capitol Police under control of the DC Police or the Capitol itself, or what? They are completely independent from the district police force. The DC Metropolitan Police are employed, within the budget of Washington, D.C. The Capitol Police are basically legislative branch employees. So, they operate basically under the purview of the Congress. Completely independent. Different jurisdiction, different responsibilities. Very big police force. There are some, 2,300 Capitol Police officers. There are only about 3,800 DC police officers. The Capitol Police is a big police force. Oh, we got some explosions. If that happens again, we'll go check it out. Not sure what that was. It was a big, I don't know if you guys heard that in the background, a big blast off in the distance. Okay, there was just another blast-like thing off in the distance, which means we got some stuff we got to go track. I don't know what that was, but let's go find out. Um, 1970s gas lines, 16% interest rates, 1980s, into the 1980s. Many people do not know how good of a job Reagan did, says Ironwood. There, by the way, ahead of us is Union Station, the big train station that serves the Amtrak out of Washington, D.C. Union Station is home to many different train lines, including the regional rails for Virginia and Maryland. It also has a gigantic parking garage behind it, from which the Megabus and Greyhound, I don't know, the Greyhound doesn't run from there, but Megabus, the Bolt bus systems like that all leave from Union Station. It looks very quiet, and it probably is pretty quiet this time of night. There probably aren't many trains leaving from there right now, but it is pretty spectacular in there. Adjacent to Union Station is, over here, the Thurgood Marshall Judicial Building, which has offices for the federal judiciary. And then over here is it's a museum to the post office, guys. Why do we have a whole museum in Washington, D.C. to the post office? Because somebody in the federal government decided to fund that. We have a giant postal museum here occupying a gigantic building here on the corner of Massachusetts Avenue. Of all things you could build a museum to, the post office. You can go sit in a little decommissioned mail truck and learn about the excitement of being a mail delivery person. You can go look at little collections of stamps. You can see how the mail was delivered before there were cars. It's a spectacular museum. Best museum I've ever visited in my life. Anyway, all these buildings, by the way, are still connected by that same set of underground utilities that connect back to the Capitol Power Plant, which we talked much earlier on tonight's stream. You got to have a cigarette and a bottle of cheap liquor in a paper bag, says Godseed. Jayla says Reagan didn't do one good thing. Maybe Star Wars was his crowning glory. God sees as my political views are psychotic delusions of grandeur and persecution. Wow, okay. That sounds intense. How do you, I guess this is to everyone in our chat tonight, how do you feel like you are being personally persecuted within our country at this time? Do you feel like you're being personally persecuted in some way? By who? All right. Why are they watering so late in the year? Ironwood was asking. I don't know the answer to that. Speaking about the fountains a few minutes ago, or the sprinklers a few minutes ago. Why are they sprinkling so high into the air? I don't know that either. And there's another one doing it over here. Sprinkler spraying sky high into the air. I don't know what's going on with the sprinklers tonight. Is this DC? Yes, this is DC. We're here at the Capitol Complex tonight in DC. Final says, respectful, I've yet begun to offend. Robbins says, looks like a malfunction, not grass watering in October. It could be a malfunction, or it could be something sinister and nefarious, I suppose. Because everything is sinister and nefarious. David is lamenting that the education system in the United States is very dysfunctional. I would say the educational outcomes are dysfunctional. Not like completely hopelessly so. I think there's a lot of hand-wringing about that sometimes. But they're not good. And, how much of that is the schools versus how much of that is home environments, dysfunctional home environments and a kind of dysfunctional culture that has deprioritized education in a big way. I don't know. I'd have to how to scientifically parse that out on a percentage basis. I would guess it has more to do with the home environments than it does with the school environments, honestly. Another reflecting pool without ducks. Very sad right now, guys. We're very short on ducks in DC right now. Robin, he talks like... Are you saying I talk like an FBI guy? Is that good or bad? Here's another fountain. I'm sure the water here is cold. This is the Senate fountain. And this is what they call the Senate Park. And this basically is a whole series of parks that, like the other parks that we've walked to on Capitol Hill, is basically a mirage, because this entire park system here for the Senate isn't just a park system, it's actually a decorated rooftop for the underground Senate garage, which they have spent the last several years renovating, and sits beneath our feet here. The Senate parking garage, which we can assume is just a parking garage. In fact, here's an entrance to it right here. Which feeds right underneath our feet, is a giant multi-block garage where I guess Mitch McConnell parks his car. And here's another fountain. The Capitol building looks awfully yellow in this view, doesn't it? David says, Trump gives a fuck. It is a singular fuck about himself. And if you think otherwise, you need to rethink. So I don't know what the construction is they're doing here. It looks like they're just repairing the planter beds here and not anything more sinister. God, see, when I became a libertarian, I worshipped more Satan. I mean, I think you can, like, parse out your religion from your politics. I don't think they necessarily have to go hand in hand. In fact, if politics is like requiring you to be a part of a particular religion or vice versa, I don't know, there might be something dysfunctional about one or the other or both. Oh man, it's very quiet tonight. Here's the entrance to the Senate parking garage. Speaking of underground locations. And there's the Capitol again with these giant security blockades, which I guess if you tried to drive this direction into, your car would get pretty darn messed up. It's like leaving the rental car place, but if you drive the other direction, I guess you can get out. All right. We got lots of sirens going off over here. I don't know what's going on, guys. Lots of sirens. Monocle for lunch some days, says David. It's not the most convenient place for me, David. We might pick a different place. How about the Oval Room? You a fan of the Oval Room, David? Not to be confused with the Oval Office. The Oval Room is a restaurant in D.C. Bohemian Grove is a satanic place the elite go to pretend to sacrifice a baby. Very strange for rich people like presidents to go to, says AMC. Yeah, that sounds like a kind of weird place to begin with. More sprinklers. There's a lot of sprinkling going on right now, guys. Uh-oh. We're going to get wet here. They're watering the sidewalk again over here. What are they trying to cover up? Ironwood says authoritarianism is how most nations fail. They cannot fight the army from the outside, so they take it from the inside to take all the money. Well, like, let's hope our nation doesn't fall. You know, whatever the cause. It'd be a shame if this whole, like, nation that everyone's invested so much into making happen, you know, like, fell. That wouldn't be the greatest thing. Okay, yeah, we did have explosions. Okay, I'm way behind in the chat, guys. I gotta get caught up. So I heard there were like 2 big loud explosions, and I don't know what they were. I kept listening to them. I was going to follow them, and I've not heard anything further, but we're sort of walking in the direction from which they were coming. So if we hear more, we'll just keep walking toward the noise. Michelle, I could have knocked on the cops, the windows of the cop cars and asked, I guess speaking about the FBI explosions, I assume. There was nobody in any of those cop cars, Michelle. Those were all empty cop cars. Every night there are 4 or 5 or 6 empty cop cars parked around the perimeter of the FBI headquarters, but they are completely vacant. And that was the case that night. Had there been anybody obvious to ask, I very well may have done that night. What was unusual was how little activity there was there. Oh, all right, guys. Don't forget the park police, too. Yeah, so there's lots of different police forces in D.C., but the National Park Police also are a thing and have a role to play. Omsk, says Ruby. Post office is exciting. Is it possible the Founding Fathers didn't craft the rules in such a way as to make it possible for the future nation to adapt and change as they envisioned? Well, the Founding Fathers envisioned that every 50 or 60 years that the U.S. would reauthor its Constitution. You know, I think, speaking honestly, you know, about what the Founding Fathers would think about our current form of government, I think if you drop them into today's society, once they finished marveling at the fact we all have iPhones and weird technologies and things like that, and they would probably be absolutely blown away by how big and sophisticated this country has become, and incredibly impressed by how, you know, sort of dominant it has become on the world stage. They might be a little bit kind of alarmed by that. I don't know if that was ever really their vision, was to like create the preeminent world superpower. I think their second reaction might be, holy fuck, you guys have a gigantic government state that we never envisioned, that you know, they couldn't even begin to fathom. You know, just sort of the scale and the scope and the level of provisioning of things that the government does. I don't think their framework in any way was ever designed to encompass a government that like kind of takes care of you from cradle to grave. You know, they were basically envisioning a government that was incredibly light touch. So I think that would be a reaction they might have. I think one of the other reactions they would probably have to our nation is that we are completely like lost in space, continuing to operate off of the Constitution that they authored in the 1780s. Like, there is no way in hell they ever envisioned that that Constitution would still be being used to govern this nation at this scale and this sophistication with this scope of government, this level of wealth, and this technology. I think they would think we're like completely lost in space, that we're continuing to use that Constitution in this country. I don't know. They might have some other reactions too. Keep in mind, like, they would be baffled by the game of baseball because that didn't really exist when they authored that stuff. There's the Capitol. There's the memorial to Ulysses Grant here in front of the Capitol. There on his horse, Cincinnati. The postal police are no joke, says Devotee. God, see, the Capitol power plant uses the souls of forsaken children. I think, like, so when we say, like, the Capitol power plant has a bunch of boilers in it, you're insinuating that maybe the Capitol power plant is actually, like, they're actually just, like, boiling children or something in those boilers. That's a kind of terrifying premise. Okay, I asked you guys about ways you're personally being persecuted by the government. Jay Luther says we are all being fucked by the corporatocracy. It's corporations running everything. And the military-industrial complex. And the crooked politicians. Is that oppressive? Yeah, I suppose that would qualify. Got see, well, I'm a Native American. The BIA is a racist system designed to keep us poor and enslaved, bribing our useless tribal leaders into looking the other way. Aubrey says persecuted by the thought police, still shadow banned on Facebook. So that would be like Facebook's thought police, not the government's thought police, but okay. Vinyl's being persecuted by the rising prices of vinyl records. They used to be so cheap in the 90s. Now it's hip again. Kelly, my Constitution guarantees me the right to privacy, but I hazard that Google, Facebook, and maybe even Apple might be paying attention to this. Ruby doesn't feel personally persecuted. Can you rent out a scooter at night? Yeah, I think you can. Okay, guys, I gotta get, like, I don't mean to skip comments here, guys, but I don't want to be 15 minutes behind in perpetuity here tonight. So I'm going to jump some things and try to get caught up so the conversation is more present with the things you guys are talking about right now. Robin says, I appreciate your walks, so informative. Well, I appreciate you guys hanging out with us, Robin. Christy G. Hi, Christy G. My son's school tried to drug test him when he was getting an after-school job. Tim says MAGA is a fascist movement. Let's see, guys. What else do we have here? Lots of hot takes tonight. Very interested in people's hot takes here. What's going on over here? Let me see. What is this, like? Drum stuff going on over here. I think I gotta go back around the other corner. Can I give you a tour of the CIA building in Langley, Virginia? I doubt I can get into that building. Kelly, how old is land? As in, like, when did the ocean waters recede to the point that, like, the tectonic plates created physical land masses that were exposed only to the air? Long time ago. That was a long time ago. Like, way more than, like, it was way more than 50 years ago when that happened. But yeah, I have to like pull up a geology textbook for that. We're here outside the Smithsonian Museum of the American Indian. I'm trying to just track down some of this noise. David Miller wants to do tea time as opposed to typical lunch. Yeah, if I eat lunch, I usually eat it pretty late, I would say. So tea time's fine. All right, we tracked down the sound of this drum circle thing, and it's a speaker in the middle of these bushes. Why? Why not, I guess, because there's a little statue here, and I don't know what the hell's going on. Anyway. Land has many mysteries about him. I suppose that's the case. Lou, I'd never knock on a cop car window. I don't think they'd appreciate that. I might stand across the street and say, hey, what's going on? Yeah, I suppose you could do that. Rather than, like, knocking on their window. They might not take kindly to that, I suppose. It's a good point. We got a fountain running next to us, by the way, guys. That's what the noise that you're hearing is. All right. Let me try to get back into downtown DC here soon. I hope you carry pepper spray, at least, says Lulu. Yeah, you never know when you're going to get like a tuna salad sandwich from a food truck as a snack along the way, and it's going to be just a little bland, and you gotta spice it up a little bit. You know, so pepper spray can come in handy. You're right about that, Lulu. More ducks on the Supreme Court, says before. Yeah, like if they wanted to nominate a duck onto the Supreme Court, I would be in favor of that. That seems to make a lot of sense. All right, that is the Washington Monument ahead of us, by the way, guys. Biden left over $85 million of military equipment in Afghanistan. I believe the number was 85 billion. Baseball was around by the time of the Civil War. Yeah, it was. It was not being played professionally yet, but it was around. Started becoming a thing kind of popularly around the 1840s. There's some weird sounds emanating out of the construction here at the Air and Space Museum to our left. All right. Lulu, being a woman, I can't relate to walking alone in the wee hours of the night. Either you're brave or psychopathic. And lack normal emotions like fear. I met a girl that couldn't relate to fear. Yeah, I've met some like real clinical psychopaths. They are interesting. You know, I do see some other people sometimes out really late at night in DC. Not a ton, but there are a few, and I always wonder what the hell they're doing out at 2 or 3 in the morning. It always seems very strange to me. But on the other hand, not only am I out at 3 in the morning, but I'm out like talking to myself, kind of loudly at 3 in the morning, often about rather bizarre topics. So I'm sure when people see me walking around, they think I'm like utterly psychotic, which fair enough. But yeah, I mean, I can see people finding us a little strange in the middle of the night. Imagine explaining to John Adams how we have a $31 trillion national debt. Yeah, I would kind of, I don't know that he'd have a reaction to that other than to just kind of find it unrelatable. I mean, but, you know, in fairness, if you got dropped like 200 or 300 years into another direction, past or future, there'd probably be a lot of things that would confuse the hell out of you too. Like if you got dropped into the America of the 1700s, even knowing like history book level history, I think you'd be pretty lost how to even kind of get by. Probably be very stunned at how difficult life is and how, you know, a lot of the things that we take for granted weren't there on a daily basis. Vital's kids are absolute morons. Yeah, if you ever tried to like argue with a baby, they really don't know a lot. Also, not very good athletes either. Like I've played soccer against like a first grader, and you know, I can beat almost all first graders at soccer, I would say. All right, let me see, guys. I'm scrolling along here. I'm trying to make sure that our conversation stays up to date with the chat here as we cross over the National Mall, with the Capitol building on one side and the Washington Monument on the other side, downtown DC. Emerald saying we should homeschool children nowadays. Yeah, I mean, I suppose. Is it Lafayette Park, Robin, where we were a few minutes ago? No, that was not Lafayette Park. We're a ways from Lafayette Park tonight. We were there last night. Have we been to the tunnels? So we did point out a number of locations around the Capitol complex where there are tunnels. Now, one of the kind of weird things about DC is this stretch of DC we've just walked through right now really has no tunnels in it. And, you know, the fact that like all that stuff around the White House that we went through yesterday and all the stuff around the Capitol building we explored today is not connected speaks to maybe how much egos and territorialism continue to drive government in DC. Emerald, I'm amazed you have a pep in your step after all the walking you were doing. You know, it's cold tonight. Even compared to last night, it is pretty cold right now in DC. We've been walking through all the dark parts of town. I want to get back to where there's a little bit more light, which we're on our way. Kelly says, your voice is smooth. Some nights I'm really feeling it and we're like very ASMR style streams. Yeah, I know we put people to sleep sometimes. I've been told that on many occasions. Was there a guy in those bushes? I hope not. Let's see. So, as you can tell, National Mall, very quiet this time of night. Pepper spray for the rats. If you pepper sprayed a rat, that's an interesting thought. I've never thought about doing that. They usually need to do that. Like if you get attacked by a rat, that rat is probably nuts. Land is from New England. The accent is making me laugh. I say he's from Massachusetts, says Kelly. You know, Kelly, I've been told a lot of things in my life. I have never been accused of having a New England accent before. That is very interesting. Lulu, I don't hear an accent at all. I'm from Vancouver, Canada. He sounds very normal to me. Ruby, I think Land's been about everywhere. He even knows about my state, which most people don't know exists. Um, Ruby, I'm trying to remember what state you're from. Robin, sounds East Coast to me. Okay, interesting. Isn't the crime rate supposed to be really high in DC? Like most cities, depends where you are in DC. There are parts of DC where, I probably wouldn't walk around late at night. Chip Douglas. Hi, Chip Douglas. Gary, if you spray someone with pepper spray, you're the one that goes to jail, not the person that's doing harm to you. With a lot of little warning signs there. Okay, good advice, Gary. So we'll try to not spray random strangers with pepper spray as we walk around at night. And I do. So we always do wear a duck suit when we walk around at night. Partly that's for safety, because when people see somebody walking around in a duck suit, they assume you're insane. So, we do that. Kelly says, Trump, Trump, Trump. Kelly, look at that lovely monument. The Washington Monument. Norman Patterson, hey Land, have been watching you on bed, can't chat, so chatting now with this Canadian in the USA loves you, man. Well, thank you, Norman Patterson. Kim Noftel, you're a blessing to those of us that run out of research news by the wee hours and still aren't sleepy. Well, Kim, hopefully our, whatever damage we're doing to our, whatever not having any sleep does to you, I guess we're doing that kind of damage to ourselves. So hopefully it's worth it. Hopefully we're providing meaningful entertainment to folks. There's some scooters very neatly lined up, like they're doing some military exercises. His style is military. Just saying, officer, my guess is Robin. These guesses are interesting, guys. So we're going to walk past the area in a few seconds here where the giant hybrid T-Rex, Mothman, Bobcat, Lion, Cougar, Big Cat accosted us last night and nearly killed us. A very scary moment. We assume it was some kind of hybrid, sort of cyborg-style creature that the FBI has created, maybe a shapeshifter type creature the FBI created with the intent of tracking us down and taking us out. So we're going to see if we run into this thing again here tonight. So far, I'm not seeing it. So far, nothing. Let's see. We'll walk this little path here. See if we stumble into anything. This building is very blue tonight, by the way. Oh my God! I'm kidding, guys. That was not a thing. The government failed, Scott Seed. Is that just a general statement? Or is that in reference to something specific? Homeschool equals human veal? I don't know what that means. Okay. The way he says no, that's New England. Interesting. Are the tunnels remains of Tartaria? No, I think for the most part they're just utility tunnels. And in some cases, pedestrian tunnels designed to connect between things. Somewhere there are tunnels you might not even be aware of. That's true, Ruby. There may be like an entire underground city that we don't know of. I saw somebody online was suggesting that there might be an underground war going on in DC between, different agencies or something. It's possible. 41 degrees. Jeez, it is cold tonight. Let me see. 34 in DC now, temperature-wise? Really? It's cold. It is very cold in DC. Canada's weather usually sucks. That's true. Canada's very cold. Almost all year round. It always makes me chuckle a little bit when people in like Toronto talk about how the weather is like really hot in the summertime and you look it up and it's like 70 degrees. We need a heated vest and socks and hand warmers, says Kim. I believed you when you told me Land wore a duck suit when I was new. Well, yeah, we only tell the truth here, Jay Luther. Wow, that was a squeaky car. So suddenly we're back into the streets of Washington. Welcome to downtown DC, guys, as we walk parallel to the FBI headquarters, which once again are here on our left. Jordan says, keep up the great work, Patriot. Thanks for stopping by, Jordan. He's going to the embassy, says Kelly. We can certainly do that at some point. We're a little far from the embassies tonight. Lyle says he does wear a duck suit. Don't disrespect the feathered crusader. Ryan says, Land, do you want to say where you're from? Also, how long you've been in DC? Yes. And let's see, this stint of living in DC, I've lived in DC since almost going on 8 years. This stint, and it's not my first time living in DC. So, we've lived a lot of places. Ryan just got a visual of pepper spraying a rat. Good job. No need to torture rats with pepper spray. I'm sure their life is already a struggle, living outside in the cold, scrounging around for food scraps, etc., says Lou. I'm sure that's true. Let's see. Friends United says, please say cup of clam chowder for verification purposes. Cup of clam chowder. Land has a Midwest kind of Ohio accent. I know too much, says Jay Luther. Yeah, our whole geographic lineage is not a secret on these streams, but you've got to watch. You got to keep watching our streams in order to find out all the juicy details of our, personal background and lineage. Okay, let me see, guys. I think I'm doing better at being at least close on the chat. Now we're 8 minutes behind. Last night, Big Dog suggested Land throw a match on the steam grate. It's too funny. Land shut him down instantly, saying steam will put the match out. Funny thing is I had the same thoughts as Norman Patterson. Unless it's not steam, which, guys, that could be a thing. People have been skeptical of the idea that this was just a a steam valve going off at the FBI headquarters. It's possible the steam valve, was the culprit, but that what it was belching out was in fact not steam. It would be interesting if we put a match up to the steam grates and it caught fire and exploded. Yeah, that would be kind of a weird thing, wouldn't it? Can you tell me why you ran away at the end of the feed the night of the explosion? Says Lulu. That's been a mystery to a lot of people since we streamed that night. And I have tried to be the buzzkill on that mystery by explaining we didn't in fact run, but that was actually just us going through the motions of adjusting the phone and like stepping off to the side, and it kind of appears like we're running, but actually we weren't running. This is the Smithsonian National Portrait Gallery, which is one of the Smithsonian museums here in downtown DC. A lot of people really like the Portrait Gallery. There's a whole little reading room in the middle of it that is kind of a fun place to go read or work or study. David, I'm a fan of Manhattans. Anybody else a fan of Manhattans? Yeah, I'd say Manhattans are pretty good. I would generally default to an old-fashioned before a Manhattan, but sometimes then I'm in a Manhattan mood, David. So yeah, I think as far as cocktails go, Manhattans can be pretty good. Oh, did I scare people by screaming? Railroad says, I love you. Is that to me or is that to somebody else? I mean, if it's to me, thank you. I mean, just, don't make Mrs. Land jealous. Very jumpy anytime I hear a little bit of rustling in a trash can or a planter box. Get a little bit jumpy. This is what happens late at night. You have the metro station here that is closed. In fact, there's a kind of mesh grate here you can't even access. But they have the escalators running even though they're completely inaccessible, which seems like a huge waste of energy. Ruby, not buying the idea of utility tunnels underneath the district. Spark Center, the 7th floor no longer exists. Was that an observation of the FBI headquarters? You know what I was noticing? A lot of those lights up on the 7th floor that were brightly lit several days ago when all that activity was happening there were not on today. So was there stuff going on the 7th floor that they felt like they had to blow up? Maybe. It's an interesting idea. Canada's not cold year-round, especially not in Vancouver. We don't even get snow every winter, and when we do, it normally melts the same day. So Vancouver's a little different situation. because Vancouver is kind of like up there by Seattle, and that's a whole different like weather pattern in that part of DC, or in that part of the continent. Oh, let's see, where do we want to go next? We're just kind of adventuring right now. Streets, as you can see, are very devoid of cars, which is pretty typical this time of night. Can you set something up? Ryan says that will let us know when you next live stream. Ryan, that's a good idea, actually. As you guys can tell, we tend to stream at a pretty regular time. Usually around, lately it's been around midnight Eastern time. That's usually about when we start. And Monday through Thursday, we're pretty much always on. But you're right, it would be nice if we had some more advanced notice for folks to know exactly when we're going to stream, because we don't necessarily stream every single night. Sometimes it's a little earlier, sometimes a little later. Sometimes, unfortunately, it just depends on when I'm able to find the time to do it. But you're right, to the extent that we know ahead of time when and that we can stream, I can make an effort to let people know, especially on YouTube. If you are on the Discord, by the way, if you have not joined our Discord, please do join our Discord, which is linked in our description here in this video. That's a great place. If you get on our Discord, I try to notify people at least a few minutes before we do stream every night that we're going to be on. So that's a great place to get notifications and just to generally stay up to speed with the community here. So join our Discord if you have not already done that. And in addition to that, please feel free to contribute to our Duck Fund. That is linked in the description as well if people want to send money our way. As always, landspeculation@gmail.com is the email address if people want to help support the stream. I appreciate the contributions there. Check our description. That has links to both the Discord and the Duck Fund. If you have not dropped a like or a subscribe on the video tonight, I do appreciate that. So yeah, drop a like, drop a subscribe. Chip, how do they keep out the homeless? There are a lot of homeless in downtown DC. Usually in the federal parts of the city, there are fewer homeless. And I don't know the full set of techniques they use to keep, for instance, like on the National Mall, there are very few homeless people down there. And I don't know the full set of techniques they use in order to do that. David, give me an example of an interrogative sentence or an interrogative sentence that ends with a period rather than a question mark. I'm curious. So guys, we just walked by a little plaza area in front of a building, and as we did, I was contemplating. I heard the sound of a fountain on our right, and so I was going to show you guys the fountain because we always, like to go take a look at fountains when we stream. But when I looked to my right, I realized it was in fact not a fountain, but it was in fact a homeless man peeing in the open air. And that was something I figured I probably shouldn't show you guys on the stream. But, people were just asking about the homeless population in DC, and we just discover somebody peeing in the open air. So, there you go. Jay Luther has lived in Asheville, North Carolina twice. It's a nice town. Been there many times myself. I've been to Asheville, I don't know, 8 times maybe myself. Not lived there, but spent a lot of time there over the years. Up ahead of us here is the National Law Enforcement Memorial, which is an interesting DC memorial in front of the National Building Museum, which is a pretty building there. And we're here in front of the DC, I guess, what is this? This is the Court of Appeals. DC Court of Appeals here. Blue doesn't buy that I wasn't running the other night. What happened on the 7th floor of the FBI? I don't know the answer to that, Spark. It's an interesting thought. Norman says select the like button to help the channel. Yeah, guys, I do appreciate that. If anybody hasn't hit the like button tonight, I do always appreciate that. Looks like we're about 2 likes from 150. If anybody hasn't hit the like button, help us get over that 150 mark. I don't get greedy, but, you know, I am a little greedy sometimes. And it makes me feel good, you know, because I derive my entire sense of self-esteem based on how many likes we get on these streams. Otherwise, I get very sad. More sprinklers going off. This is like Tuesday night must be sprinkler night, citywide. Why are there scooters everywhere? Because DC is a big, sprawling, spread out city. I think people tend to like riding the scooters around town because it's more efficient than walking if you're doing all the touristy stuff. Okay, let's do a recorded Metro tour. Says Vinyl. I'll watch. That's not a bad idea, actually. We can go down into the Metro at some point and take a gander at what that's like. I don't know, like a tour of Metro. I'm not sure what we would show you as a tour. We can show you what it's like. Generally, obviously, if we did a live stream down there, we wouldn't have service, and it would be a complete disaster. All right. I keep thinking I'm catching up, and then you guys keep posting comments, which is great, by the way. I enjoy all the comments. Really appreciate all the engagement. Kelly, I love DC. It's actually coolest at night. Here's another grate in the street, and it's very warm coming out of this grate. Steam tunnels, guys, steam tunnels. We learned a lot about steam tunnels last night. If you missed our stream last night, go back and watch that. I'm lurking. Thanks for the ducks. Norman, working on getting a new job. If you get the job, you'll contribute cash. Well, we don't want to like make anybody bankrupt here contributing to the duck fund. But you know, if you have if your bank account has let's say it has $10,000 in your bank account, you know, maybe save $300 or $400 of that for yourself and send us the rest, would be my suggestion. So like that way you'll still have a nice little cushion there, so you can buy groceries and stuff, pay rent. So guys, this is I guess it's like a little apartment building here, but years ago during the inauguration of 2017 ran into Jesse Waters coming out of this building, like the Jesse Waters on Fox News. Lane, are y'all in DC again? We're in DC right now, Lance. So thanks for stopping by. Let's see. Is he behind on chat or am I behind? I'm 6 minutes behind in the chat. Asheville's gotten too big. It's very touristy now. They've done a very good job branding themselves as a city. Asheville does have a little obelisk there. The part of the town they call, I believe is that Pack Square in Asheville. It's a creepy city, says Kelly, DC, but I love it. A little creepy at times. Skeptical lived in Asheville. Viva Ash Vegas. Yes, it's gotten way too big for the valley. What's the temperature, Joanne? It's cold. It's like no more than about 40 degrees. Uh, 6 years behind on chat. Maybe. DC is a big fan of the traffic tickets. You're right, Kelly. What time do I start, Vicky? Usually around midnight Eastern time. I don't even know how long we've been on tonight, guys. My counter thing reset. So it says I've only been on for 50 minutes, which I know is not true. And by the way, guys, if we have not picked a winner tonight, we should pick a winner for any of the mods that are lurking here. Because a stream without a winner would be a stream of mediocrity, I suppose. We can't give participation trophies to everybody. It's too many people. And trophies are expensive. What's my favorite other place besides DC? So you're assuming I would like put DC in a tie for first as favorite places. Favorite place besides DC generally? Place to visit, place to live. What did I think about that? I should do a ranking of the best places, actually. That'd be a very good deep dive. Just to sort of go through the best places, my favorite places. Go the fuck to bed, says Railroad. Wow. That sounds like a command. Scarecrow says so lonely, ghost town. Yeah, a little bit. Vinyl digs the blue lit buildings. Were you in DC for the inauguration when it was overcast with rain and flurries, but sunny on TV, says Chip? Yeah, as I recall, that was basically the temperature and the weather that day. The winner, Norman Patterson. So Norman, congratulations on the victory. I think that is deserved. And you've been popping in for a long time, so appreciate that. Vicky loves the show. Well, thanks, Vicky. I really appreciate that. Ryan, how can I send from Venmo to PayPal? I don't know, Ryan. But if you shoot me an email, landspeculation@gmail.com, or get in touch on the Discord, I'm sure we can work something out. If you can't make the duck fund work, I certainly appreciate the interest. Michelle says hi from Australia. Well, hi, Michelle. What's going on in Australia? San Francisco, great to visit. Yeah, San Francisco is a great city. Homelessness is pretty bad in DC in certain places, Lance. Someday if we go over and take a look at the Federal Reserve, there's some big tent cities over there. Yeah, DC definitely has a homelessness issue. Does the ghost of Strom Thurmond walk the streets after midnight? I'd have to believe yes. Is Bob Dole still alive? Or did he pass away? I can't remember. I don't know. It's amazing he's lived as long as he has. Bob Dole's gone. Okay, it must have been pretty recently. It was amazing. Like, he ran for president in '96, and people were like worried he wasn't going to last the full term. And he's like, he just died. Amazing. Yeah, because we did a. In fact, I was going to do more. I got a whole book of Bob Dole humor. Bob Dole wrote a humor book, like a joke book, and it's the driest joke book I've ever read in my life. I don't know. I got to read more of Bob Dole's humor as a stream sometime. I have to keep track of all these ideas. We're going to do a countdown of favorite cities we've lived in and a Bob Dole humor stream at some point. He passed away December 5th, 2021. Jim asking, America burning. I don't smell smoke. It's a little bit metaphorical, Jim, but it did start when America was literally burning during the massive protests a couple of years ago. Bob Dole and Norm Macdonald. Yes, both great comedians. Both dry comedians. So we picked a winner tonight, guys. I guess I should take some time to thank our moderators, as always, for all the work they do on behalf of our stream. We have mods that work tirelessly, round the clock, 24/7, on our behalf, and it is tremendously appreciated. All the labors they put in on the behalf of this stream. So, thank them. I appreciate probably the best way to thank them is make their life easy. And you guys have done a really nice job the last several nights making life easy for our moderators. But Jen's tired. Okay. Bob Dole's a climate change guy, was he? I think that was one of his. I didn't think that was one of his issues, Kelly, but maybe he was. I'm asking about the ducks, says Jim. What's up with America burning? When did we start using the America burning cover image? Well, when we started doing these streams, DC was literally burning at times. But the sort of illusion was the country sort of burning the midnight oil, that kind of thing. Anyway, guys, I'm going to start to wrap us up here because it is FBI Loud Noise Week is officially over. Yeah, it's been a full week, hasn't it? Yeah, no more loud noises at the FBI. It was before the Canadian kerfuffle. Yeah, there's a whole lineage to all this stuff. We covered a lot of events since we started doing this. Anyway, guys, yeah, if you want to keep the conversation going, make sure you've joined our Discord. I've plugged that several times tonight, but again, the link to the Discord is in the description. Big buses. Who are they bringing into DC? Yeah, join our Discord. Send money to our duck fund. Make sure you dropped a like and a subscribe on this stream. I do appreciate that, as always. Ross Perot. Yeah, we do remember Ross Perot. Old school version of Trump, kind of. Any last words, guys, for tonight? We're going to be back out. If you guys have particular requests or suggestions you'd like us to cover, we obviously have a lot of deeper dives coming. We're certainly happy to cover more things on those deep dives. So let us know. Let me know either on the Discord or anywhere else what you'd like us to cover. If there are particular things you want us to go see in Washington, we can go see those things. Let me know. Yes, quack, quack, Vicky. Most definitely. And, I think that's about it for tonight. I can't think of any other things to say. So, yeah, guys, reach out if you have any thoughts. If you feel like we're not adequately covering the things you want us to cover, let me know. But I think that's going to do it probably for tonight. So, once again, thanks to our mods. Thanks to everybody for all the conversation tonight. Really appreciate all the thoughts. Hope this is interesting to you to see these different areas of the nation's capital. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Like, subscribe, Discord, Duck Fund. Thanks, guys. And we'll be back. Don't be strangers. We're on pretty much every night during the week. So, if we can be on, we'll be on. All right, guys, this is Land. That ain't just speculation. And for now, I hope you guys all have a good night.